Hotel Dusk Room 215 is a criminally underrated video game for the Nintendo DS. It's a puzzle-solving, mystery-adventure game all in one, and as close to video game perfection as you can find. Not only is it a great brain tickler, but it also has a film noir style of storytelling, and well thought out, well written characters that feel more like real people than two-dimensional AI beings. To top it all off, there is a gorgeous soundtrack. I'm telling you all this for two reasons. Reason number one, not a lot of people know about this game, and the bankruptcy of the developer, Sing, doesn't help that. Reason number two, I got this game by sheer accident. Money was burning a hole in my pocket, so I went to the store, picked up the game and said, "Hey, this looks cool," and I bought it, and now it is my absolute favourite game. But something almost changed my mind. The basic plot of the game is that you play as Kyle Hyde, an ex-cop who is in a dumpy hotel working as a salesman, and has dedicated his life to finding his double-crossing ex-partner. Along the way, you meet a young woman named Mila who cannot speak. Through the course of clues given to you from her, it is deduced that she has been to this hotel before. I believe it is in Chapter 9 of the game that you go to room 111 to look for more clues. And during this, Mila has a revelation and begins talking again, and you learn that she was here as a little girl with another girl named Jenny. It was my second time playing through the game. I read online that there are New Game Plus modes, so I figured it may be worth playing through for new content. I got to that section again in Chapter 9, where you go to room 111 to look for those clues. But I noticed that something was different. When you enter the room, the maid, Rosa, and Mila are usually waiting for you. However, they weren't there this time. So I thought to myself, this must be something to do with the New Game Plus mode. I shrugged it off and decided to head into the back section of the room, which was the bedroom. I entered the bedroom and immediately noticed what was new. I saw two little girls sitting at the foot of the bed, playing with dolls. One was blonde and the other was brunette. I was bewildered because I could tell that this was supposed to be younger versions of Mila and Jenny. But time travel didn't seem to fit into the realistic nature of the game's story. Kyle's face appeared, which meant he had something to say. The dialogue box popped up. Oh God. Though it was just text, I wondered if Kyle was supposed to sound frightened. What sealed the deal, though, was Kyle's expressions. Playing through the game before, I had come to memorize practically all of Kyle's preset facial expressions, but this one was new. He looked uncomfortable, almost scared. This New Game Plus was beginning to worry me. Just then, Mila and Jenny's faces filled the two screens. This signified a conversation was about to begin. What was weird was that, for the first few text boxes, the text looked foreign. But on closer examination, the text was English, but was chopped up, like it had been put into a blender. The girls looked like they were having fun through the screwed up dialogue. Then it was Jenny's turn to speak. "Want to play a game?" said Jenny. Mila didn't say anything, but she nodded enthusiastically. "Great, come with me." The girls' faces faded off the screens, and the sound effect of a door shutting emanated from the speakers of the DS. This implied the girls had left the room. I was put back into the game and began to move involuntarily. I tried tapping all over the touchscreen and pushing every button, but nothing was slowing Kyle down. I had an uneasy feeling spreading through me like ice water, which finally reached its peak as Kyle left room 111. The cheery music, played through the halls of Hotel Dusk, had now been chopped and screwed up into some sort of sick remix. Parts of the music played in reverse, at high speed, or in slow motion. But this wasn't the most unsettling part. The walls now had red text all over them. Phrases like "patter cake" and "ring around the rosies" and other childhood games were repeated over and over again. Kyle's face appeared again, with that same uncomfortable look on his face. He kept moving through the lobby and to the hallway, without me controlling him. I could feel my heart rate increasing. Kyle then began to move up the stairs. Another noticeable difference was that, instead of fading to black and appearing on the second floor, as would usually happen, the camera moved up the stairs slowly. Kyle's face bore into me like nails and, although it may have been my imagination, began to look more afraid with each step he took. Kyle finally reached the second floor. But that's all it was, a floor. The hallway's walls were now black and all the doors had disappeared. The camera shifted to the left and Kyle kept moving. The hairs on my neck stood on end as I noticed the twisted music had begun to fade out and I began to hear a young girl crying. I wanted to shut the game off and never play it again, but something kept me entranced and waiting to see what would happen next. Kyle kept moving down the hallway. The draw distance was very short, as though everything was shrouded in shadow. Little red dots began to show up on the floor, and my stomach churned as the spots got larger and larger, and the crying got closer and closer. Finally, Kyle stopped in his tracks, his expression now terrified and pained. The shadows began to fade away, to reveal Jenny sitting on the floor, and a little blonde girl in a white dress that had been stained red. Mila. I felt the name in the back of my throat, like I wanted to scream out in terror. But Jenny turned around, and her face appeared on the screen. Her eyes were now replaced by black holes, and the sight was such a surprise to me. I jumped back, and my heart skipped several beats. A dialogue box for Jenny appeared. "Oh, do you want to play too?" Jenny's morbid face grew an innocent smile, and I yelped slightly as that terrifying face filled both screens for a split second before cutting to black. The game over screen faded in, but it looked different. Normally you would see an image of Kyle carrying his briefcase to his car. But this time, Kyle was gone, and I knew that Jenny had done it. Trembling, I tapped the try again option, and to my surprise, the game started over from the very beginning. I was so shocked that I kept playing the game for the next few days, and the game was completely normal again, with the intended New Game Plus modes that I had read about online. but I had so many questions left unanswered. Why was Jenny doing this? More importantly, why did it happen only once? I've searched the far realms of the Hotel Dusk fandom on the internet, but I cannot find a single case of this occurring anywhere else. So the truth is, I will never know what happened to me on that one playthrough. But each time I begin a new game on Hotel Dusk, I break into a cold sweat whenever I enter room 111. So that was Jenny's game. I have to admit, I hadn't played Hotel Dusk before reading this creepypasta, and after doing some research and looking into the game, it really is quite an interesting detective game. It's got a lot of great dialogue and memorable characters, so it's a pretty great game from what I've played of it so far. And I actually really enjoyed this creepypasta because it's based on quite an unknown game, a cult classic, and most of the gaming creepypastas that I'd looked at have been, on major games such as Sonic the Hedgehog and things like that. Again, there's not a lot of gore in this story, much like the previous creepypasta that I read, and I kind of appreciate that because you see it far too much, especially with video game creepypastas. So this story had a really good build-up and suspense, in my opinion, and there's just the setting of the game adds to the creepiness because this game isn't necessarily a horror game, but this story is kind of transforming that setting into a horror game. This story is believable because the developers of the game could have added these new things, these new creepy things as sort of Easter eggs or hidden content in the New Game Plus mode. There's no reason this couldn't exist, and there's no reason why we couldn't have these creepy, unsettling versions of the story. It would really throw the player off if they played through the game again and they saw the horrific version of Jenny and Mila instead. The things I didn't like, there's nothing really that much, in honesty. There's nothing too cliche about this story at all, aside from I went to the shop and bought it. It's always a case of that. I know that the player or the protagonist of the story has to acquire the game somehow, but sometimes it's not even necessary to divulge that information. I went to the store and bought it. It's always, at the start of these stories, and it gets kind of tired and old. But overall, I enjoyed this creepypasta, and I didn't think it was bad at all. So thank you for checking out today's pasta, Jenny's Game. I'll be back again with some more readings of gaming creepypastas, and as always, I'm taking requests, and please feel free to join the Discord server. The link is in the description. Thank you. Brad out.